partisan opponents that you've never even heard of. Think about those parents in Virginia who went to a school board to protest propaganda filled their kids are being exposed to. They sick the FBI. Think about the pro-life pastor outside Philadelphia. Had his home raided early in the morning with 7 kids, heavily armed FBI agents, even though he had offered to turn himself in for the grave crime of singing hymns in front of an abortion clinic. When he went to trial, the jury of his peers, he was acquitted in about an hour. I assume they spent most of that time electing the foreman and getting the sandwiches delivered for lunch before they repudiated this joke of the case. Think about when some liberal leaked Dobbs opinion last year to reverse Roe v. Wade. You had left-wing street police marching outside of private residences of conservative justices on our Supreme Court, which is in direct violation of federal law. Not a single arrest ever occurred. These were not criminal mastermind people. They didn't just show up. They were advertising on social media, saying what the addresses of the justice homes were, inviting you to come protest in front of them. It only resulted in arrest when a left-wing hitman flew to Washington, D.C. from California and was caught outside of Justice Kavanaugh's homes with a backpack full of things like wire cutters and zip ties. That's the double standard that you see throughout the Department of Justice, which has become the enforcement arm of Joe Biden's White House. But the most glaring example is the indictments of former President Trump, especially the most recent one, which is not about the riot that happened at the Capitol, even though Jack Smith, who is a rabid zealot, said that in his press conference. It's about simply what Donald Trump said about the election in 2020. It's about him pursuing his lawful means to contest that election. You can disagree with what he said, you can disagree with any lawsuit he filed, but it shouldn't be criminalized. The fact of the matter is, we're going to criminalize politicians saying things that they may not think is true. We're going to have a lot of people in the dock in this country. Maybe starting with Joe Biden. Joe Biden said he didn't have the authority to use $400 billion of your money to give away to student loan relief. But then he did it anyway, only to be stopped by the Supreme Court. Maybe Barack Obama, who said he didn't have the legal authority to grant amnesty to millions of illegal aliens found in active Congress, and they did it anyway, only to be stopped by the Supreme Court. For that matter, maybe Jack Smith, a man who reminds me of Stalin's chief of the secret police, who said, "Show me the man and I'll show you the crime." Jack Smith, in an earlier time in his life, pursued the governor of Virginia. And for our purposes, I want to know he was a Republican governor. He got a conviction of his novel and untested legal theories. And then it got to the Supreme Court, where it was reversed, 8-0. Wow. The only reason it was reversed 8-0 is there wasn't a ninth justice confirmed final position to join the other 8. This should not happen in America. It certainly should not happen when you have the president's son being treated with velvet kid gloves for the most obvious, grotesque kind of influence ever, earning tens of millions of dollars from Chinese communists, oligarchs, Kazakhstan, and Romania, that we now know, thanks to his own business partners, Joe Biden spoke to on the phone dozens of times, had dinner with. Don't worry, they only talked about the weather. It must have been some weather pattern that week they were talking about. The richest woman in Russia gave $3 million to Hunter Biden. And then lo and behold, she gets to have a fancy dinner in Washington, D.C. with Joe Biden when he was the sitting vice president of the United States. What does Joe Biden get? What does Hunter Biden get? He gets a plea bargain of a couple of misdemeanors, which, hidden in the fine text, tried to exonerate him for every crime he could possibly be charged with for all of his business dealings that only failed because you had a smart Trump-appointed judge asking simple questions of Joe Biden's lawyers and the Department of Justice lawyers. Because when those two sets of lawyers sit down across the table from each other, those are not adversaries negotiating. Those are co-conspirators strategizing. The The double standard is outrageous. It's the kind of thing you expect to see in a third world country that you do see in places like Pakistan, locking up people who are not just former retired politicians, but the leading candidate in the opposition party. They're doing it because they know they can't defend their own record. And those are the stakes of the election we have ahead of us.